Death is only the beginning. The Mummy wasn't just a pulpy adventure flick. It was a brutal trial by fire, sun-scorched deserts, collapsing sets, and real-life near-death experiences. What looked like slick popcorn fun on screen was forged in sweat, pain, and dangerous improvisation. Behind the laughter and romance, there were brutal stunts gone wrong, fevers from parasites, and even brushes with suffocation. Today, we're peeling back the bandages to reveal 20 wild on-set injuries and secrets from The Mummy. And trust me, one final bonus fact will leave you stunned. Stay with me, you won't see this movie the same way again. Brendan Fraser, nearly suffocated. During the hanging scene, the infamous execution scene wasn't just movie magic, it nearly killed Brendan Fraser. When his character Rick O'Connell is strung up, Fraser insisted on selling the realism. The stunt coordinator tightened the noose just enough to make it look authentic. But one take went too far. Fraser's air supply got cut off, and he lost consciousness in front of the entire crew. Rachel Weisz recalled the panic as medics rushed in to revive him. He stopped breathing, she later admitted. Audiences thought it was clever acting, but in reality, they were watching a man come terrifyingly close to death. The hanging scene stayed in the final cut, but Fraser's brush with suffocation became one of Hollywood's most whispered near-fatal stunts. The desert wasn't Hollywood, it was deadly. The sweeping Sahara shots weren't faked on a soundstage. Cast and crew endured Morocco's blistering heat, where temperatures often soared above 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Several crew members collapsed from heat stroke, while others battled scorpion stings and sun poisoning. Brendan Fraser joked years later, "We weren't acting tired, we were tired." The desert swallowed water bottles in minutes and warped equipment. Rumors even suggest producers had to hire a special medical team just to treat venomous bites. Filming on location gave the movie its epic authenticity, but it also turned production into a survival test. Each frame of rolling dunes carried the weight of real suffering behind the lens. Rachel Weisz's close call with fire. One of the biggest hazards wasn't ancient curses, it was fire. During a scene inside Hamunaptra, Rachel Weisz, Evelyn, had to move through a chamber lined with torches and special effects flames. At one point, her hair nearly caught fire when a torch burned hotter than expected. Crew members scrambled with wet cloths to shield her as the cameras kept rolling. For Weisz, the moment was a wake-up call. This wasn't CGI trickery, this was raw, uncontrolled danger. Yet she refused to back down, completing the sequence with calm precision. Looking back, she admitted she never fully trusted the flames around her. Brendan Fraser's back was never the same. The Mummy demanded stunts, lots of them. Fraser, committed to doing his own physical work, threw himself into fights, leaps, and falls. But the constant punishment left him battered. In interviews, he admitted he was put together with ice packs and tape after long shooting days. He later revealed the toll wasn't temporary. Years of accumulated injuries from The Mummy and its sequels required surgeries on his knees, back, and vocal cords. What audiences saw as heroic action was, in truth, a slow erosion of Fraser's body. The Mummy may have stayed in the tomb, but Fraser carried the scars long after the cameras stopped. Parasites made filming a nightmare. Shooting in Morocco wasn't just hot, it was crawling with parasites. The cast was warned about contaminated water, but inevitably, many got sick. Brendan Fraser admitted he caught dysentery, forcing him to film action scenes while fighting dehydration and stomach cramps. Other actors dealt with sand fleas that left painful welts lasting for weeks. Crew members nicknamed the camp the Curse of Hamunaptra, half joking that the set itself was cursed. Yet the director, Stephen Sommers, pushed everyone to keep going. What audiences didn't know was that the exotic authenticity came at the cost of illness, discomfort, and constant physical misery. The CGI mummy was built from real pain. Audiences remember the groundbreaking digital effects that brought Imhotep to life, but what they didn't see was the painstaking process that turned Arnold Vosloo into a monster. Vosloo spent endless hours in motion capture rigs, his movements scanned in brutal heat with no air conditioning to protect the computers. The early technology malfunctioned constantly, forcing him to repeat exhausting sequences again and again. Worse, the actor wasn't allowed to wear much clothing during capture, leaving him exposed to freezing desert nights and scorching daytime Sunday. What came across as sleek 1,999 CGI was in reality the result of physical punishment and an actor's relentless endurance. Imhotep may have been digital, but the pain that created him was very real. Rachel Weisz refused to wear blue contacts. In the script, Evelyn Carnahan was described as having striking blue eyes. The studio pushed for Rachel Weisz to wear colored contact lenses, but Weisz fought back. She argued the contacts made it difficult to see on set and blurred her vision during action scenes. More importantly, she refused to sacrifice her own safety for aesthetics. In one rehearsal, she nearly stumbled into a torch while squinting through the lenses. After that, she flat out refused and won. It wasn't just stubbornness, it was survival. Thanks to her stand, the character became iconic, not for artificial beauty, but for Weisz's authentic performance. Sometimes, standing your ground behind the scenes saves far more than dignity. It can save your life. Sandstorms were real and dangerous. When audiences saw massive walls of sand swallowing the horizon, they assumed it was movie magic, but much of it was real. Morocco's deserts were prone to violent sandstorms that could hit without warning. During one terrifying day of shooting, cameras had to be shut down as crew huddled under tarps while sand whipped into eyes, mouths, and lungs. One crew member was hospitalized after inhaling too much dust. Stephen Sommers later admitted he had to rewrite shooting schedules around these storms. Ironically, the real sandstorms were so intense that even ILM's CGI artists used them as visual reference. What almost destroyed the set ended up immortalized on screen. Brendan Fraser's allergic reaction to the mummy dust. One of the creepiest sequences involves clouds of ancient dust swirling through tombs. What most people don't know is that the dust wasn't digital, it was powdered clay mixed with special debris. Brendan Fraser developed an allergic reaction to it, breaking out in rashes after days of exposure. During one shoot, he even had trouble breathing, forcing production to halt until medics cleared him. Fraser later joked that he was literally allergic to mummies. But behind the joke was a serious reality. The stuff designed to sell ancient curses was triggering his body in terrifying ways. Not CGI danger, but real chemical discomfort. Kevin J. O'Connor's brutal bruises as Benny Kevin J. O'Connor, who played the slippery Benny, took more punishment than audiences realized. During one chaotic chase sequence, O'Connor had to be tackled and slammed into walls multiple times. He was black and blue by the end of the day. Crew members recalled his body being covered in welts, but the actor laughed it off, calling it method acting. The director praised him for never complaining, even when the bruises became visible through makeup. Watching Benny get shoved around might make audiences smirk, but the laughter came at a heavy physical cost. O'Connor's battered body was the hidden punchline, the scorpion infestation on set. If you think the scarabs were nightmare fuel, the real danger was scorpions. Morocco's desert teemed with them, and despite constant pest control, the creatures kept sneaking into tents, costumes, and even shoes. One crew member was stung and rushed to a local hospital, where antivenom was scarce. Brendan Fraser recalled shaking out his boots every morning, joking it was part of his new desert routine. But the truth wasn't funny. Production delays mounted because the crew had to pause to sweep the set for live scorpions. The CGI scarabs may have been digital horror, but the reality was even nastier, deadly predators creeping just out of frame, waiting for their moment. The cast learned to fear the ground itself. Oded Fear's sword training left real cuts. As Ardith Bey, Oded Fear became a fan favorite. His swordplay looked effortless, but behind the scenes, it was brutal work. Fear trained extensively with real blades to make his movements convincing. During one rehearsal, he misjudged a spin and sliced his own arm. Though it wasn't life-threatening, the gash was deep enough to require stitches. Fear refused to take a break and returned to set bandaged, determined not to slow production. Ironically, his real injury lent his character an authenticity. When you watch Ardeth fight, you're not just seeing choreography, but the grit of an actor who literally bled for the role. It wasn't movie swashbuckling. It was blood, sweat, and steel. Brendan Fraser's cracked rib. The hanging scene wasn't Brendan Fraser's only brush with serious injury. During one action sequence, Fraser was thrown against a wall harder than planned. He walked away laughing, but later discovered he'd actually cracked a rib. Production pressed on, and Fraser performed through the pain, strapping his torso and hiding his discomfort behind quips and adrenaline. Years later, he admitted those injuries never fully healed, compounding the physical toll of his career. When you see him grimace in The Mummy, sometimes it isn't acting at all. It's pain real, raw, and unshakable. What audiences saw as swagger was often a man pushing past genuine agony. John Hannah nearly broke his ankle. Comic relief came at a high price. John Hannah, who played Evelyn's bumbling brother Jonathan, had to scramble across crumbling tomb sets while carrying props. In one chaotic scene, he misstepped on uneven ground and nearly broke his ankle. The injury swelled instantly, and crew debated shutting down the day. Hannah insisted on finishing, hobbling through takes with his foot tightly bound. Director Stephen Sommers worked camera angles to hide Hannah's limp. Audiences thought Jonathan was clumsy by design, but the reality was an actor forcing comedy through searing pain. The funny stumble nearly cost him weeks of recovery, but Hannah turned it into cinematic gold. Explosives gone wrong in Hamunaptra. The grand temple destruction at Hamunaptra wasn't all CGI. Many scenes used real pyrotechnics, and one controlled explosion went wrong. A blast was timed too early, sending shards of debris flying toward the crew. One stuntman suffered a gash across his forehead, and another had his costume set smoldering before fire extinguishers rushed in. The production nearly shut down, but Sommers pushed forward after a day's pause. The danger wasn't lost on the actors. Rachel Weisz later admitted she never trusted the blasts after that incident. What looks like epic Hollywood spectacle was, in truth, a hair's breadth from disaster. 1 second of mistiming turned movie magic into mayhem. Brendan Fraser's knee was shattered in a stunt. Fraser's dedication came at another devastating cost during a tomb fight sequence. He leapt onto a platform, slipped on loose sand, and landed awkwardly, shattering cartilage in his knee. Production paused only briefly while medics wrapped him, but Fraser returned almost immediately, hiding the limp with careful choreography. Over time, the injury worsened, eventually leading to surgeries years later. Fraser later confessed that The Mummy broke my body. What fans saw as heroic leaps were, in reality, brutal impacts that crushed bones and ligaments. The Mummy wasn't just a movie, it was a battleground that permanently scarred its leading man. Every daring stunt carried a hidden price, etched deep into his body. Rachel Weisz's close call with collapsing set pieces. One of the most terrifying incidents occurred when part of the Hamunaptra set collapsed unexpectedly. Rachel Weisz was inside a chamber when a massive prop column toppled, missing her by inches. Crew rushed in, and the shaken actress admitted she could feel the gust of air as it fell. The accident rattled everyone, especially since sets were supposed to be controlled danger. Afterward, safety checks were increased, but the fear lingered. Watching Evelyn navigate collapsing ruins on screen feels thrilling, What audiences didn't know was that one near miss could have been fatal. For Vice, the line between performance and survival blurred in a single heartbeat. Snake wrangling terror. Snakes slither through one tomb sequence. And the fear wasn't just acting. Real snakes were brought onto set for authenticity, handled by professional wranglers. But during one tense shoot, a snake escaped into the shadows of the set. Panic erupted as cast and crew scattered, unsure if it was venomous. Production halted until wranglers finally cornered it hours later. Brendan Fraser joked afterward, "At least it wasn't a mummy, but the tension was real." For Rachel Weisz, who hated snakes, the experience was so traumatic she requested that all future reptile shots be handled with CGI. The snake scene audiences enjoyed nearly shut the film down. Stunt double hospitalized after fall. Not every injury belonged to the stars. One stunt double, tasked with leaping across crumbling ruins, miscalculated his landing and fell hard onto uneven ground. The impact fractured his arm and dislocated a shoulder, sending him straight to a Moroccan hospital. Shooting paused for the day, but Sommers pushed to keep momentum, replacing him with a backup. The injury was never made public at the time, overshadowed by the lead's stories. Yet the fall highlighted just how dangerous the set really was. Stunt performers were risking far more than glory. The spectacle of collapsing tombs came at the cost of broken bones behind the scenes. Arnold Vosloo's suffocating wrappings. To play Imhotep in early resurrection scenes, Arnold Vosloo endured layers of sticky prosthetics and wrappings. One sequence left him so tightly bound he could barely breathe. Crew members monitored him constantly, peeling back layers between takes so he wouldn't pass out. Vosloo later admitted he panicked at least once, fearing he'd suffocate before cameras stopped. For viewers, the writhing mummy looked terrifyingly authentic because it was. Vosloo wasn't just acting trapped in bandages, he was actually fighting for air. The film's unforgettable monster was born from very real claustrophobia and risk. Imhotep may have been immortal on screen, but his actor was vulnerable under every layer. Bonus fact: the airplane scene was cursed. The desert airplane crash sequence became one of the most chaotic shoots in the entire film. The vintage biplane used for the scene malfunctioned multiple times, forcing emergency landings. Crew members swore the plane was cursed after one incident where its engines stalled mid-flight with actors still strapped inside. Brendan Fraser later admitted the panic was real. "We thought we were going down." To make matters worse, a freak sandstorm grounded production for days right after. Some whispered the movie had awakened its own mummy's curse. What audiences thought was thrilling spectacle was, in truth, a nightmare of faulty machinery, genuine fear, and survival. The sequence remains one of the most authentic in the film because the terror wasn't faked. The Mummy was never just a glossy adventure about treasure hunters and curses. It was forged in heat, bruises, dust, and danger. Brendan Fraser's body paid the price. Rachel Weisz dodged fire and falling stone. Stuntmen and crew carried scars audiences never saw. What looked effortless on screen was a story of human endurance, sometimes reckless, sometimes heroic. The legacy of the Mummy isn't just CGI sandstorms or campy charm. It's a reminder that behind every frame lies risk, sacrifice, and survival. So, if you love these behind-the-scenes secrets, hit like, subscribe, and share your favorite Mummy memory in the comments. Because in Hollywood, just like in Hamunaptra, death is only the beginning.